Thank you. Senator Hickenlooper, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleague from Idaho, I appreciate all your work. I share a lot of that history with you. We worked on our roadless rule. I think it got finally enacted in 2012. I came in and got elected in 2010, so it took a big part of my first couple years to get everybody around that table and make sure that every single hunters and anglers and timber merchants, and you go down the list, everyone signed off on that roadless rule, and it was a remarkable achievement. I don't think it's been, to my knowledge, it's never been litigated since. We moved heaven and earth to make sure that everybody was at the table, because it did help. It doesn't solve the problem. And the problem writ large is that we have a lot of people in this country that want to live in the woods and they want to experience wildlife and be closer to wildlife. And we see more and more people living in that wildland-urban interface. And I'm deeply concerned about our ability to keep them safe. And we're working on our Fix Our Forests Act. It's going to help accelerate the ability to allow thinning of forests, ecological thinning, so that we can make sure that the forests aren't so vulnerable. But the cuts that look like from kind of come through your budget in terms of firefighters, sorry, really concerns me. And we have in our national forest in Colorado, we've got the maroon bells, we've got, well, I go down the list, Fish Creek Falls, a whole bunch of iconic views that people talk about and dream about and come visit. And as every year, we're really worried about it, when a wildfire gets out of control, how do we keep people safe? And not just the people that live in the wildland-urban interface, but it's visitors that don't know their way around and are going to get caught up in a place where they're going to have their entire summer disrupted or actually become in danger. So with the budget cuts, I guess my first question is, how are you going to keep Coloradans, but people from all across this country, safe?
So, Senator, thanks for the question. The first response is that the budget, the 26 budget, does not reduce our firefighting resources or capacity. It transfers it from the Forest Service to Department of Interior to create this new Wildland Fire Service. But there is no reduction in the firefighting budget that is established. So there is no reduction in that case. What we have been talking about, though, is there are reductions on some of the state and private components. And that's maybe what you're alluding to, is the SFA, VFA piece. And that's the piece that, as I've testified previously, that would be shifting from the Forest Service paying for those costs or Interior to the states to cover those costs.
Right. And I think what I see again and again throughout all the budgets we're seeing is more costs shifted from the federal government to states and local areas that are going through their own budget struggles right now. I also understand that we need to both streamline our permitting and all of our financial services to look at the wildlife crisis. In what other ways are you promoting resilience in terms of forest fires and those efforts?
So, Senator, I think a big part of what we look at is, the suppression is just the back end of this. Ideally, what we want to do is be very active managers, and that's using prescribed fire, it's using mechanical thinning, it's using commercial timber sales. All of those are critical to making sure that we create resilience and protect communities. One of the big things I mentioned earlier that Congress did back in December is you all passed a disaster supplemental, and there was funding in there for Sierra Pacific to actually do fuel breaks on federal lands, on Forest Service lands in California and Oregon. So to me, those are some of the innovative approaches that we're looking at. We can partner with industry and partner with the states. We just signed an agreement with the state of Montana. We're actually having discussions with the state of Colorado right now, looking at a similar type arrangement where the state could come in and assist in managing some of the federal lands. Right. In a broader way. We've also had discussions about even on recreation and how the state can assist in managing recreation. Pikes Peak, for instance, is an area that the state has expressed interest in managing that site. So we are looking very much from a perspective of cooperating with the states to look at how we can address some of these issues.
Appreciate that. Your budget also proposes a land transfer initiative to right-size the federal land. Coloradans, and I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of notices we have, do not want public lands put up for sale, certainly not in any scale. I think we're okay, recognized in certain small areas, isolated circumstances, maybe for workforce housing or something like that in a small mountain community. But I think county commissioners, town councils, mayors, Republicans, Democrats, all called us, wrote us, said, do not sell our public lands at scale. It's certainly not to try and reduce the deficit. So hopeful that you'll listen to local governments and public citizens to recognize that that's not a constructive direction to take the Forest Service.
So, Senator, one of the things, I think you alluded to this, there's been a big focus on housing. The administration has looked at this issue and is concerned that as communities want to grow and they're surrounded by federal lands, there's limiting opportunities. So the Forest Service is looking at this issue. We did a 99-year lease on the White River Forest. That is an existing administrative site that is going to be leased for housing. And we're looking at opportunities in Oregon and in Idaho as well. So where we have tracts, we have authority to sell 40 acres right now. It's the Small Tract Act. But we also are looking at other ways to dispose, and those can be long-term leases where we can encourage where communities want to expand ski resorts, for instance, right, where there's not enough housing for employees, where there are current administrative sites. We're not talking about going into the backcountry. We're talking about we have admin sites that are in areas where they're eroded and those kind of things, where you can take those sites and maybe make affordable housing. So that's the opportunities that we're looking at right now.
Okay, well, I'm out of time, but when you use language like right-sizing the federal estate, I think that notion of scale that language creates is of great concern to a lot of people. So just keep that, be mindful.